real problem, and it's discrediting all of us, and until we take it seriously, it's going to continue. No?
We can debate the details here, but I think it's important to acknowledge a baseline, and that is that there have been an awful lot of attacks where actual people died in the United States and in Europe, committed by people saying really clearly we're acting in the name of Islam. Hasidic Jews, I mean, they're a set-apart community, speak a different language, not assimilated, but I don't see a lot of terror attacks committed by those groups. Often hear Americans say, I have said, including last night, is that assimilation is the problem, is people are not assimilated, and yet you look around, and there are actually a number of groups in our society and yours who aren't assimilated. Hasidic Jews live apart, the Amish live apart, they pose no threat at all to the country they live in. They love the country. Why is this group different?
Well, the Muslim population of the West is rising very quickly, and that has implications for social cohesion or national security. So if I say, as Islamic countries do, you don't have a choice. You have to wear the hijab. You need to be modest, and if you're not, you could get raped, and if you do, it's your fault. And you have to avert your gaze from men. For example, women are asked to walk behind their husbands, or in some countries, you're not allowed to drive or vote. Under certain circumstances, can that be empowering? Can female genital mutilation be empowering? That's common in Islamic countries.
An Austrian woman was convicted of, quote, disparaging religion. She was fined more than $500. Her crime was suggesting that Muhammad's marriage to a 6-year-old constituted a form of pedophilia. She claimed her comments were protected by the freedom of speech because she is a European, and traditionally they would have been, but things have changed now. So in other words, a standard that has long prevailed in the Islamic world, which is that you can be punished for criticizing Muhammad, is now the law in Europe.
Exactly right.
The bomber was born in Britain, not some far-off land, but he still grew up to embrace Islamic radicalism and declare war on the country that raised him and kill his neighbors, in effect. There are many more like him. So when you watch the American response, even the cultural response, to an event like what happened in your country on Monday, are you surprised by how few of the lessons Americans are learning from this?
Sharia law is bad, Seth. I don't know if you've heard that. It's bad. It's worse than what's happening in New York and Detroit. It's just bad.
Tucker Carlson at the Real Estate Fever Forum 2025.
I've never been to Saudi Arabia, and I can't wait to go for a glimpse of what the future holds, because that's what you see when you go to the Gulf, because it's of its scale, its significance in Islam.
He's like, you know what Islam means? Submission. And like let it hang in the air, like that was self-evidently disgusting. And I was like, I kind of think submission to God is like the whole point of life, but I didn't say anything. I was like, I don't think I'm against that, actually.
This is an existential threat to the Western way of life. I really believe that.
Anyone who submits to God, like, I'm just for that.
Okay. So they're showing Tucker's his stances on Islam throughout the years. I'm sorry. And then all of a sudden he's now going to Saudi Arabia, meeting with certain people. I mean, he believes that to submit is a beautiful thing. So they're showing the contradiction there of him over the years. I mean, I've heard that he could be getting some money from some of those countries. I don't know if that's true or not, but it could also be that he's had a lot of anti-Israel stances. So maybe he's leaning into the Islamic side of things as a way to push back against Israel. I don't know, but I don't know what to make of all of that. I mean, I don't know if I never really like watched Tucker Carlson that much. So
it blows my mind. He knows enough about Islam, and then he's just literally acting dumb. Oh, submission is a good thing. Like, yeah, like, and it's like he's so laughing weird in such a weird way that it's like, what are you doing? Like,
he always laughs like that, though.
It's just so weird to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, it's like, I think, again, I said this earlier, when we focus on something so much and we just want to we double down on stuff, and we're just so focused on, and I do think it's a little bit of Israel is bad, you know.
Yeah.
And he might be getting paid, but you're like,
I think it's a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think lately him, especially for like hardcore conservatives, once people like Candace Owens and him have taken an anti-Israel stance, I think they've definitely leaned more into, this kind of the language of why are we giving them so much money? What's going on over there? Questioning certain things. You can see that a lot of their former supporters have turned on them. You're not supposed to question that.
And then they've also taken a more sympathetic stance towards Islam as a result of being anti-Israel as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what that clip is trying to point out. Like all of a sudden, he over the last 20 years, he's had all of these things to say about Islam being an existential threat to the country and the ideology being a threat. And then all of a sudden, he thinks submission to Allah is beautiful, and he thinks that's what life is all about. I mean, and listen, there's nothing to be said. People can change their minds. People can have, growth and have their views change and realize that they were propagandized about all of Muslim, because there was a lot of fear-based propaganda in the early 2000s after 9/11 about all Muslims because of, certain sects of Islam that are very anti-America and terroristic and very brutal as far as their belief system. So I think
Yeah.
we definitely fell victim to some of that too. And I think when people come out of that and realize, like, wait a minute, oh, I was told to hate these people, and then you meet a bunch of Muslims that are beautiful, nice, loving people like we all know in our lives, you start to wonder, you start to go down these rabbit holes.
And that's what we talked about too. He was working for a network at the time that was drawing ratings, and like we said, the early 2000s, 9/11.
Yeah, George
In order,
Bush, Fox News.
in order to be on those programs, having that kind of talking point would have been very popular.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have been famous.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between acknowledging that there are people who are, like you just said, there's like, you don't hate people, you hate the ideology.
Right.
But in order to hate you have to look into the ideology.
Yeah.
And that's my point. Like, so him saying now, like, oh, so Islam just means submission. I have no problem with that. Submission is great. Like that now, okay, what does that mean though? What do they submit to what? Submit to who? Right? So now you have to go deeper into that. But when you're like just being very surface with it, okay, yeah, submission. But submit to who? They're not saying it just means Islam. And don't get me wrong, there are Muslims that will say, oh, Islam just means submission. Yeah, but can I submit to Jesus as God? No. So then it's not just submit to anybody, right? That's my point. Like it's not. Let's be clear here. Islam submission means something, and it means submission to their God, which is Allah, right? And
right.
in turn, there's a lot that goes with that, and that's what you have to make a defining line between. And you have to learn what this whole thing is and where these things come from. You have the Muslim Brotherhood, you have Hamas, you have Hezbollah, you have the Ayatollah, you have Iran. It's so funny, like they're Shiites, but then they're Sunni, you know what I mean? Like, and you don't even know the difference between them because we don't know much about Islam. And if we say just Islam bad, then yeah, I get that. Or Muslim people bad. Yeah, we shouldn't be doing that either. But we got to start being a little smarter and understanding where these things are going and how these things work, or else we're just as ignorant as everybody else. And to me, that's what this guy is acting like. He's just ignorant and doesn't even know anything.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's an interesting time, like seeing a lot of the divide in the conservative, the MAGA movement, the conservative movement, if you will, all of these like strongholds that were so united, especially after October 7th and after like that whole, the handling of all that, a lot of the decisions that Trump has made, you're seeing this fracturing and you're seeing people go in these weird directions. It's a very interesting time, but I think it's necessary. It's necessary because people, we can't be monolithic in any way. Like we need to see what people really think about things.
Yeah, and part of what the backlash they're getting is they're questioning Israel. That's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They're questioning why we're giving them so much money.
I don't think that's what it is. I think that's where it started, but then they took it way too far, and they're taking it way too far.
No, the backlash for Tucker and Candace is their
Israel
talking
there.
points.
Yeah, it started there.
That's why their crowd turned on them.
Yeah, I mean that's why she got fired from Daily Wire. That's why he lost his job. Like they literally, it all started with them even questioning Israel or the narrative of October 7th or like what was happening there.
But then
and the money they were asking, why are we giving them money? Why do they have free education? Why do they have healthcare? Why do they have free college? Why is taxpayer? That's what they were asking, and I think that's what got them in trouble.
Yeah,
but now he's taking it. Now he's going a whole other direction with it. But that's how it initially started with him.
Yeah, they're doing the Kanye, right? Where it's like you start with just with trying to expose certain things that you're being attacked for. Because let's be frank, like the things that they said were happening. It's like if you question Israel, they try to come at you with lawsuits. They try to come at your bank account. They try to, come at your livelihood, and all of those things happen to all of them. Because there's
Israel or the Jews.
Israel.
Well,
I heard him question Israel.
They were talking about Israel at the time, and at that time, because of October 7th, it was seen as if you talk about Israel, you're talking about all Jews. There was a conflation of the two at the time because it was so, it's like if you talked about 9/11 right after it happened, then you hate America. You know what I'm saying? Or like if you question the narrative, then you hate America. You're not patriotic. So there's that conflation that happens when people are emotional about things at the time. And I think with Candace and Tucker at that time, because they were pushing back against the mainstream media narrative that was going on, they were punished for that like monetarily, you know, as they said. And that's why I said it's the Kanye effect, because Kanye Kanye specifically said Jews, which was, you know, a whole other thing. But I'm saying, like, then what he said they were going to do, they actually did, which then sent him further down that rabbit hole of saying, like, see, I told you this is what, you know what I mean? And then it just snowballs into now all of a sudden now he's doing a KKK song talking about how Hitler So
I think Tucker
what I'm saying is, like, it's snowball. Like, yeah, Tucker and Candace aren't going to go that crazy because they don't have they're not bipolar and have mental issues going on, but they are snowballing in a certain direction. You see it happening in real time.
And two, this is the whole thing about freedom and saying what you want in speech and policing languages, because you remember you guys played Nick Fuentes a few weeks ago. Nick Fuentes, a lot of conservative, when he talks about the black community, they'll be like, yes, perfect. But then when he starts talking about the Jews in Israel, they're like, whoa, take it easy. Don't do that.
Well, that's one of Candace's biggest talking points about it as well, is because she says during George Floyd and during Black Lives Matter, when I was heavily criticizing the black community and talking about the problems in the black community, nobody cared. I didn't get in trouble at all, you know. But then as soon as I question the narrative with Israel, and as soon as I talk about babies being killed in Gaza, now all of a sudden I get in trouble, you know. So.
Right. I mean, I even saw that with Patrick Bet-David. He had a former CIA agent on there, and they were kind of talking about this, and he was saying, he said that, pretty much like they can't even bring up the fact that every time they get any device from Israel, they bug them, and it was device, and you can see the awkwardness in that. Like, you can't even have a conversation, whether it's true or not. Give him a chance to speak on it if he's wrong. But like, I think Tucker is more frustrated that. Because I just saw an interview with him and Mark Cuban, and Mark Cuban was talking about they were talking about funding Ukraine. He's like, you have billions of dollars. Why don't you give them some money?
Yeah.
And he was quiet the whole time. I think that's what it is. It's more frustration over what people feel is taxpayer money going over there, and you can't even question it. I think so. Tucker got on that bandwagon, and he just took it to a whole nother level. Same like Candace, but like you said, not as far as Kanye, because Kanye is gone. Kanye is antagonizing at this point.